Good morning and welcome to National Retirement Security Month. I'm Jeff Snyder, the lead anchor for the Broadcast Retirement Network. National Retirement Security Month is a time for workers of all ages to reflect on their retirement savings and their goals. This month's show is focused on managing your retirement savings through unpredictable markets and also what to think about when you're starting your side hustle before or during retirement. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Kathy Kristof is an award-winning syndicated journalist, author, and CEO of SideHustle.com. Well, Kathy, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, Kathy, there's a lot going on in the economy, and I think a lot of people who are at or near retirement are concerned about the market volatility. We just had the Federal Reserve raise rates, so interest rates are going up, and of course, rising inflation. So I guess my first question to you is, if I'm at or near retirement, should I be overly concerned right now, and how should I react?
You shouldn't be overly concerned, never be overly concerned, but be cautious and take a look at where you are in terms of how much savings you have, whether that's likely to survive, as long as you do. And I think that if you do an analysis of where you are and where you stand, and you look at this and say, even if prices are 9% higher this year and continue to be higher for a while, my retirement plan is still on track. If that's the case, then you just don't worry about anything. But if you don't know how to do that analysis, or the analysis looks sketchy, then you need to start making contingency plans. And one of them is earn more now so you can sock more away. Another one is spend less now. So again, and that spending less is good on both sides, because spending tends to be a habit. And so if you spend less now, you're likely to spend less in retirement as well. And therefore you need less for retirement. So it benefits you in all possible ways. The other, possibilities are don't retire quite so quickly. The one thing you have to know, though, for those of us who actually lived through the 70s, inflation can be lasting, and it doesn't. While it will taper off, the inflation that you see right now, it tends to be nagging. So essentially, new inflation rates will come on top of these. You rarely have prices drop. And so what you have to do is really kind of factor into your retirement planning the fact that prices will be higher forever. Basically, we might not have these crazy levels of inflation in the future, but we are not likely to go down to the previous levels of costs. So factor that in. It's a long-term thing.
And I guess I guess what you're saying is control what you can control. I mean, obviously you can't control what the stock market's going to do. You can't control the market volatility or even what the Fed does, but you can control some of your behavior, which is, as you're saying, spending and what you spend your money on. Let me ask you another question. As we reach close to retirement or near retirement, what about paying down our debt? I have read numerous places where Americans are now racking up more credit card debt than pre-pandemic. That has to be a bit disconcerting, especially with rising rates, because those rising rates have an impact on the credit card rates as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Certainly, credit card debt is variable rate. And so if you have more credit card debt and you don't pay it off every month, you are going to end up paying more and more on that past spending. So that is kind of a red flag. You are spending way too much. You need to slow down, or you need to make more money in order to pay off that debt. Other sorts of long-term debt, I actually don't suggest you pay off. I mean, particularly if you have a mortgage that you've taken out or refinanced in the last few years, that debt is at such a low interest rate. There's zero reason to pay it off. It gets cheaper every year as inflation gets higher. So that is debt you keep, but that short-term and variable rate debt, yes, pay it off either by spending less or again by earning more.
Kathy, let me ask you about wellness. And how does all the things we're talking about, saving, paying down your debt, how does that tie into not only your financial wellness, but your personal wellness, your health? They're almost inextricably linked together. So how you feel financially can have an impact on your mental health and your overall health.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're whole beings, and as such, we stress is one of the most compellingly negative things for your physical health. Um, I- and obviously, financial stress is a big part of it. So how do you deal with that? You address it. You don't press it back. You don't say, "Oh, inflation is bad, but I'm just going to go on and act like it's not happening, even though it's like tying me in knots inside." No, you go through your budget. You go through what you can control, as we just talked about, and you start addressing those issues. I had a woman just ask me the other day, should she go back to work? And one of the reasons why she's asking is because for her, the cost of after school care is so high that she would be earning only an incremental amount. And so, she's a perfect person where I'm like, you need a side hustle that you can do during the day when your kids are at school. And then you don't have the added cost of after school care, but you just have the added income. And even if that added income is only a little bit more than the incremental income that you would have gotten from having the after school care, it makes a giant difference. I don't know if I told you, Jeff, but we just completed a quiz on our site. And it's aimed at helping people find a side hustle that fits their unique combination of skills, resources, and interests. And so if you go to our site and you just hit quiz on the top, it'll lead you through a process where you can figure out, okay, well, do I want to work, rent, or sell assets? If I want to work, do I want a job that's creative, intellectual, easy? And each of those roads will lead you somewhere that will ultimately result in just one or two really good opportunities for you. And so, anyway, that might help people who are going through that. Okay, how do I get out of this hole that we're in?
Yeah, and here's the other thing, Kathy, and then I want to go to a commercial break. But also recognizing that you're not alone, that there are thousands, millions of us, all of us are feeling the pressure, the weight of what's going on. We still have to buy eggs and milk and gasoline for our cars. So you're not alone. I think a lot of times that can lead to that hopelessness, that feeling of uncertainty. So if you know that you're in the same boat with other people, Kathy, that also helps mentally get you focused and prepared for the future.
Yeah, I would imagine that most people know that by simply having coffee with, friends, because everybody is bothered by inflation right now. And obviously, some people are impacted way more than others. People who are living more hand to mouth have a vastly more difficult time in these. But yes, it's and Minneapolis Star Tribune just did a survey and found that, the vast majority of their readers were impacted by inflation, and about a third of them dramatically.
Yeah, I for one can attest. I know you've shared that you're being impacted, so I think we're all kind of in the same boat. Kathy, as I said, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about how to find that side hustle, kind of build on what Kathy talked about. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM.
Welcome to the Deferred Compensation Plan. The plan is a retirement savings program designed to supplement your city pension plan benefits. While your pension plan provides an important foundation for retirement income, creating additional savings is important to support your standard of living in retirement. With this voluntary program, you can set aside a portion of your salary now to be withdrawn in retirement later. Your pension benefits plus your plan savings, along with any additional savings you might have, helps you reach the goal of retirement income security. The plan puts you in control of your future by allowing you to decide how much to save, which tax-advantaged way to save, and where to invest. We support you in all of these decisions with guidance and information. We have local counselors and online tools to support you as you make important decisions about your retirement. Learn more by visiting la457.com or call us at 213-978-1601. Start building your retirement future today.
Welcome back. We're talking to Kathy Kristoff, an award-winning syndicated journalist and CEO of SideHustle.com. Well, Kathy, thanks so much for staying with us this morning. Really appreciate you hanging out for segment 2 of the program.
Sure.
All right, let's get to your bread and butter, if you will, and maybe the bread and butter are a little bit more expensive. But let's talk about the side hustle, and this is something that you have dedicated this part of your career towards. And I want to ask you first, before we get into finding the right side hustle, is retirement being redefined? And I want to, when I thought about retirement as a young man with hair, thought about sitting on the rocking chair, maybe with grandkids, or playing golf, even though I don't particularly play golf. But that was the image I had. Is retirement being redefined, and are we thinking about it differently than we did in the past?
Well, yes, I think retirement is redefined by absolutely everybody who experiences it. And so, what you imagined you were going to do when you were a kid or a young worker, I think was largely dictated by what you saw your grandparents doing or your great grandparents doing. And it also is impacted by what looked old to you, right? And now, as we all get closer to retirement age, we go, well, wait, I'm not old. I'm not old at all. I'm young and vibrant, and I have all these interests, and I have all these goals. And so, yes, you redefine it because you're not there yet. You're not interested in that sedentary retirement that you might have seen your grandparents experiencing. And we're healthier on the whole than we were then. We have a lot more information about health and exercise and all these other things. And then we have more opportunities to, in reality, in our grandparents' day and age, the opportunities to side hustle were fewer and far between. You had to really seek them out, and they weren't easy to find. You were defined by a geography, and so if it was hard for you to get around, or if it was, or you didn't know where to go, you didn't have contacts at companies that were hiring part-time people, your options were so limited that you probably didn't engage in them. But now that's completely changed, and the ability to work online is everywhere. And the ability to have a great job online in the very specific category that you're interested in is, again, all you have to do is do a quick search. And so yeah, we're redefining it because we're different, and healthy, and we have better options, much better options.
Kathy, you mentioned side hustling, and as my introduction, I talked about that. How big is the freelancing or side hustle among today's group of pre-retirees and retirees?
Pre-retirees, I don't think it's as big. Among retirees, it's becoming much larger. And part of that is because people are trying to figure out how to deal with inflation, and they don't have a better way to do it, really.
Yeah, and so it's more out of necessity, or is it out of finding your passion? I mean, you don't have to go back to the same job you had. You can go back to something you like to do, whether it's knitting or crocheting or working on the golf course or teaching wrestling, as an example.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Let's say you had a professional job and you retired a few years ago. You can contact that company again and say, hey, do you need, a consultant? Do you need part-time work? But you can also go to any one of a number of consulting platforms that are interested in your expertise. And these are used by a lot of small businesses that don't have the money to hire somebody, full-time. So they put a job out to a company like Maven or GLG or Zintro or Appen or, whatever. And then those companies will go to the people who have registered on their site as experts and match them to find somebody who can actually provide that expertise. And depending on what the expertise is and what the job is, you accept or reject whatever's thrown at you. But these can be highly lucrative, very short term, so you can spend an hour and earn a couple of $100 because they need your expertise in, say, logistics or in marketing or in retail. I mean, there's just the options are huge. So you don't have to go and work at Walmart to actually have an impact in retail. You can sign up on a consulting platform and have them talk to you about, okay, how do we get more sales? What are we doing wrong? And that is a marvelous option for retirees. The pre-retiree group are generally at their highest earnings years, and they're also able to generally extend the amount of years that they work. So it's kind of easy for them to say, no, I'm just going to focus. I'm going to get big raises, and maybe I stay working until I'm 70 instead of 65, or until I'm 68, and that is always a really good option. So yeah, they're not, or I don't see them as being as big into this, but the people who have retired in the last few years, I see a lot more looking for another option of making money.
Well, $700, that'll just cover a cup of coffee, and by today's standards. Just kidding. If I'm a retiree and I'm thinking about, I'm joking, all joking aside, if I'm a retiree and I'm thinking about making that transition to a side hustle, how do I do that? I mean, if I don't know, I think I know what I'm good at this point in my life as a retiree. I've written down my likes and my dislikes, but how do I effectively make that transition to a different career or a different opportunity?
Well, I mean, you actually kind of start like you did as a kid and say, okay, what am I interested in at this stage in time? And you're not making a decision for the rest of your life. You're making a decision for today and realize you can make another decision tomorrow. So you might decide, hey, you know what? I've got all this stuff that I've accumulated over 65 years of life or 70 years of life. I don't need it. I don't want it. So I'm going to go on to sales platforms um, and market these things, for whatever I can get for them, and so you can do that. Once you decide that's not that interesting to you anymore, you can say, well, how do I feel about renting a room, say through Airbnb? Do I want to have strangers come into my house all the time? Do I not? I can make X amount of money with that. I don't want that, but maybe I do want a roommate, a younger roommate, like I can advertise for somebody who's in college, who will not only rent a room for me on a longer term basis, but also help me with chores and watch my dog when I go away. These are all options now. And then you have the whole wide world of part-time jobs, and it can be tutoring, great one for older folks who know a topic well. And you don't need to be a teacher. You don't need to have credentials for most of the tutoring platforms. You just really need to know a topic. And you might even just be teaching younger kids to read. These are wonderful things that you can do. You can do it in person or online. There's so many options. But it's really, like what engages you? Where do you want to use your time? Because again, the options are endless, and you get to decide each day whether you want to try something new. It's again why we created this quiz on our platform, so that people can try the quiz, and we tell them, hey, you might have a lot of interests. Each line of questioning is going to lead you to a different side hustle. So, gosh, you like art, you like tutoring, you like this, you like that. Take it again and make another decision for tomorrow.
Yeah, I like the flexibility that you're describing. I think as a retiree, you've earned that right. You put in 25, 30, 35 years working for city government, working for company XYZ, and now you've earned that flexibility. Let me ask you about blind spots, because there are always things that we don't see when we start new opportunities. Are there blind spots that we need to think about when we're making the transition to side hustle, such as taxation? If I go from becoming a W-2 employee, very different from, for example, being a 1099, there probably are taxation considerations there.
Well, yes, taxes are not taken out of your wages when you're doing a side hustle. But the question is whether that's, it's still only a portion of your income. So the only issue you have to really pay attention to is, have you accounted for the fact that at the end of the year, you might have a tax bill? If you're already retired, your tax rate is probably not going to change that much, right? So I think you set aside part of the income you earn and look at your current marginal tax rate, and that's the highest rate you pay on your income. And it's much easier for people to do a blended rate. So look at your income, look at the amount of tax you pay. If it's, say, 10%, account 10% of what you're now earning. But because you might go up a tax bracket, make it 11 or 12%. No big deal. So it just account for it. And it's not a massive issue.
And last question, expectations. We all have our own expectations, our biases. Are there certain expectations we should have, or maybe we should expect not to have expectations when we're transitioning from a full-time job to this? And just go in it kind of like a little bit more free will, free flowing?
You should expect to be paid. You should expect to be paid fairly, and promptly. And that's, something, again, if you're considering a side hustle, I encourage you to just look it up on our platform, and we'll tell you what to expect, because we read the terms and conditions, and we find out whether people have complaints about that particular company or whatever. There are some that are really bad. And so, yeah, you should be aware of that. But I would say of the ones that we have rated, more than half of them, well over half of them, are good or average to good. And it's only a relative handful that are problematic in a way that you really need to be concerned about. But if you didn't check them out and you have a problem, the great thing about it being a side hustle is you just don't work with them anymore. You just find a better one.
Hands and go away.
Yeah. I mean, you basically have wasted that time, but just don't waste more. Don't continue with a company that is not doing their fair share. That is not treating you the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, it's been a pleasure chatting with you as always. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
My pleasure. It was great talking to you, Jeff.
And that wraps up this very special episode for National Retirement Security Month. And remember, for all the latest information related to the Los Angeles 457 Deferred Compensation Plan, visit la457.com. Until next time, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.